Hello, Eric Walczykowski here, CEO of Bespoke Partners and host of Tailored Talent. Today, I am joined by Stephanie Usry and Debbie Ellisen from Clutch Insights. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Eric.
So, Framework 360 tool coming together. Talk to me about really what the framework is and how you do things differently.
Right. Yeah, I think we do some things differently, and I think we're also tapping into already proven concepts.
Okay.
So I think some of the already proven concepts are the framework is strategy, culture, and execution. Executives and leaders in organizations need to be doing all three of those.
Yep.
And we just fine tune some language, modern language around the skills required to do each of those things really well. And so there are 5 skills in each of those 3 capabilities: culture, strategy, and execution. And I had been testing that for several years before we rolled it into the product. Mm-hmm. And again, our wonderful informal board helped us continue to craft the words so that they meant things to executives and they meant things to people. So I think it's proven models and just modernizing it. And then with the technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, we didn't want to just do another multiple choice. Everyone gets a 3 or a 4. No, everyone feels bad, ready to go 2. So it just doesn't work if you really want meaningful feedback. And so again, as AI came out, when ChatGPT came out, we were playing around with this idea of how can we just collect qualitative data, long form responses. And we literally have people just talk into their phone, their responses to this 360 survey. We capture all of that qualitative data, and then we use AI to score people's responses against the framework.
No, very cool. So strategy, culture, execution, where does talent selection fit into that?
Yeah, I think that over culture, strategy, and execution is sort of this explicit expectation that Steph mentioned that sort of comes before you even get to the table to talk about the specifics. And so I think you and your team work really hard at this, is what I would imagine, is getting the hiring organization to be very clear about what the specifics are that they need relative to the scenario, right? So is it, are you, you're a 15-person organization and you just raised, $20 million and you're in that growth, or are you later stage and you have 500 employees and you're growing to 1,000? So I think being really clear about that, and our tool can help before you even get to that point, those organizations to identify where it is. I mean, I think boards know intuitively, but if an ELT takes a clutch assessment or even has conversations about those 3 capabilities and the 15 skills, I think it can help identify what the needs are for that particular scenario. Does that make sense? Do you know what I'm saying?
It absolutely makes sense. Yeah. As you know, we're in the business of talent acquisition, so I wanted to see kind of how all that fit together for us. Now, when you think about your 360 tool, I mean, I love the ease of, hey, I'm going to answer the question, I'm going to speak into my phone. Content is very important, but content without context sometimes doesn't work, right? And so if I think about the model you've trained your AI on to score the responses, talk to me a little bit about that and how you put that together.
Yeah, it's been a journey. So the way that we score responses, it all starts with the framework, right? What is the framework? How are they doing across culture, strategy, and execution? And we have only 9 questions, technically 8, that we ask participants, but we ask them to not just tell us a response. We tell them, tell us stories, give us examples. And again, we get sometimes pages of response data for 1 question at a time. And then what we do is our model, it goes and looks through this data and it says, okay, based on what everyone is saying about how this person runs meetings, or based on what everyone is saying about how this leader creates safety and communication across the team, how do we want to then score that against the framework? And we actually come up with, just like a teacher would grade your essay as an A, B, or C, we basically give you a point score and we say, okay, based on the feedback, based on the framework, this is how you are perceived to score against this. And we also, for the Leader 360, we do, and this is how you say you do in comparison to how the participants do. So we actually can see, like, are you consistent with what the participants see, or do you have a little bit of a inconsistency in how you see yourself versus what they need from you? And we see a lot of the time leaders think that they're doing very poorly at something, and their team is saying, actually, they're great at this, but this other thing they really need to look out for. So it's really just opening up leaders' eyes about, again, what's working, what's not. And one of the other pieces is we don't just do one 360. We do one, you get an initial, but you also get a progress. So you're going to see what are the 3 things you need to do the most work on, the 3 skills. That's like the front page of our report. And then 3 to 6 months later, you can do another scorecard to see, have I actually made progress on that? Am I improving in these areas? Or am I just kind of doing the same old things? So we really care, especially as coaches and facilitators that are working with clients, we really care, are you actually improving, or are you just doing a 360 to like get some feedback, feel a little better, and then move on?
Yep.
Yeah, and I think, Eric, to your question about context, I mean, that is so important. So we're not suggesting that people get this scorecard and then it speaks for itself. There needs to be a conversation with people about it, right? So whether it's an individual leader that's getting a scorecard with their coach and then going to all the people who participated, or it's really a team meeting, right? It's an offsite where the team or the board is together and they're unpacking what's there. And so they're going to have a lot of data and then they need to talk about it.
Yep. No, absolutely. And I think, look, I mean, the survey is very important. Having the framework, the survey, the content, the scoring. But if you don't have the follow-up, who cares, right? And I think that's so important. One of the things that's interesting, we both serve private equity. And what I find in a lot of practitioners that do what you do, there's a lot of academia behind this that isn't well suited to the pace of private equity, the speed to make decisions, and then so what, we really need results and we need them now, not, hey, I don't want to hear how smart you are and, all the thing behind the thing. I know you're smart. Let's, what's the so what here? Talk to me about how you do what you do fits uniquely in serving private equity.
That is why we targeted private equity, because we are about performance. Like, this is about accelerating performance. So, you're a sports fan. Can you imagine the Giants saying, the team saying, you know what, we're actually going to do without a coach this season. We're just going to try it on our own and see if we can do this without a coach. Like, that would never happen. And so, we believe that in order for these leaders to accelerate their ability to perform together, there need to be tools like we're providing, and there are other tools out there as well that we would support and advocate. And then it's helpful to have some sort of a coach, whether it's an internal coach, it could be your CHRO that is able to facilitate these conversations, or an external coach. So, I actually think we aren't really academic. I don't think we would fall into that. I think we're very practical about, we're going to provide you tools and services to enable you to onboard people more quickly, to identify what those things are that are holding you back from performing more effectively. And it just seems like there's no better place than an area that has significant investment, both in money and people.
You had me at performance.
Yeah,
I think that is the language of private equity, which candidly, what I've seen, like you, I've played in venture, I've played in private equity, and I've played in the public markets. And the rigor that private equity owned businesses go through are like nothing else in terms of the metrics, how quickly you have to move. Since we both, tend to care significantly about software, talk to me about what you're seeing as the biggest gaps in software executive teams, and why do they continue to persist?
Yeah, I think Steph and I are passionate about this, not to be overly redundant, but this explicit expectation. And I think I can even apply it to sales and marketing, because, that's also my passion and where I come from. And it's fascinating, these smart, well-meaning, people who desire to have this performance and to make these goals over and over and over again, try and bite off too much, so that they go to the offsite. And I've done this, by the way. So I will admit, I went to a CEO in COVID. I get my whole team together. What are our priorities? And my CHRO, when we got back to the office, she's like, there are 55 priorities. I'm like, no way. There's no way there are 55. We came up with like 5. And she's like, yeah, but underneath all that. And then sometimes they actually compete with each other. So in sales and marketing, there might be, okay, we're going to get more traffic on the website, and then we're going to pass these leads to the BD team. And that's what marketing's goal is. And then over here, sales is like, yeah, actually, you know what? We need lighthouse accounts. And so we're going to spend our money and our resources on enterprise salespeople, and they're going to go after these big elephants. And so, this happens all the time. And so this fanatical prioritization and clear expectations about who's doing what and what the dependencies are just isn't happening. It's fascinating. And it has major implications on the ability for the team to execute. By the end of that quarter, they look at their list of 55 and they're like, shoot, we only did 5 and they weren't even compatible with each other. I mean, does that resonate with you?
It makes absolute sense. And I see it all day, every day in terms of teams, right? You get your strategy right, you're looking where you go, and then your to-do list or prioritization list becomes too long, and then it becomes a spiral, right? Because then you're walking in there and now you've got a whole team of people going, hey, we're underperforming. And it's not because they didn't work hard. It's because they didn't prioritize what the most important thing was, and it didn't work together as a system. So it makes total sense to me, and I get why that
yeah, and
is
we call that ambiguous assumptions. So we actually have this great little framework where the goal is to have explicit expectations, where they're very clear agreements. But what this is ambiguous assumptions. That sounds great. Let's go. We're ready to go. We're all eager and ready. We're committed. But we just spin up way more than we can actually bite off as an organization.
And there's something about people feeling like it's rude to ask the detailed questions that need to be asked in that moment of other people. It's fascinating. It's like, well, I don't want to, step on someone's toes, or maybe that's going into someone else's swim lane, and it's actually their job, right? It's the job of the executive. It's hard. We're not suggesting any of this is easy, but that's why people are paid the big bucks. And that's why some executives are better at this than others. And this is where the rubber meets the road. And I find in our work, a lot of what we do is give people permission to ask the hard questions. Yeah. I feel like that is what we spend most of our time doing.
What do you think the biggest barrier to that actually happening is? And why do I need you to unlock that for me?
Yeah, I think, I was in an offsite, so I've been in like thousands of ELT offsites over the last 15 years. And I was in one time. It happened to be a bank. It happened to be in Southern California. And the CFO said, look, I'm not going to, we were talking about vulnerability-based trust and psychological safety and the need for that. And, there's some exercises you can do to get to know each other. And we were kind of going through this, and he just sort of said, I've only been here for 6 months. It's going to take me about 5 years to develop the amount of trust you want me to have in order to ask those hard questions. And I sort of looked at them, and they were kind of a startup bank. And, I kind of looked around the room, and I asked the rest of the executives, like, do you guys have 5 years to wait for him to build up enough trust to ask you the hard questions as the CFO? Who has that time, right? So, I guess the gap that we see has to do with this inability for people to give benefit of the doubt that we're there for the right reasons and kind of jump in. And so I think the executives that can do that are the ones that are going to be most successful in accelerating their own career.
Cool. So as you know, we talked about earlier, we're in the talent acquisition business. And so how does what you do impact talent acquisition in an effective way?
Yeah, I have heard a lot about your interest in helping your placed executives perform as quickly as possible upon placement. And I think that's key. So we have examples where a new leader is starting, and in particular, this happened recently. A new CEO is starting at a PE-backed company, and on his first day, the rest of the team had taken a clutch scorecard about the team. And so on the first day, there was an offsite for a day. I was able to attend that. And that leader was able to hear what all the people thought about what the team was doing well and what the team wasn't doing well in this report all together, instead of what usually happens where that leader, and the leader still has to have some one-on-ones. I'm not suggesting that, but what the leader usually has to do is spend the first month having all those one-on-ones and figure this out for themselves. And in those one-on-ones, sometimes there's differing opinions. And so then by the time that leader, maybe it's in the second month, maybe even the third month, is bringing the team together to really figure out what's right and wrong and what's going well and what isn't, we're doing that on the first day. So I think for you, with your team, we're offering in our partnership a discount for your placed executives. I think encouraging your leaders that are placed to do that ahead of time so that they get that report, so they have all that information, and then they are having the conversation in their first couple of weeks.
It's just so impactful, because when I think about, private equity and the talent thesis, and that's one of the reasons why I took over Bespoke, is because I think the talent thesis in private equity is at its infancy. And I think when private equity firms started focusing on talent, it was really, hey, how do I get the right person? And the right person meant who's done the job before, who's made money for investors in that role, and the like. And I think us operators, our view on that is, well, the right person, the first thing is the right person is dependent on the context. And so we could have very equal resumes or backgrounds or skills and be a different fit for a different company based on a whole host of issues.
Yeah.
But then the second thing, and the most important thing, I think, is the work that you're doing, which is talent. To me, and my framework for talent is attract, develop, belong, retain. And so it's this whole notion of integrated talent management in the whole life cycle. And we started with, well, we got to get the right people on the bus. That's great. But I think having this notion of, well, what does the rest of the team look like? How do they show up for work? What are their strengths and weaknesses ahead of time? And I think back to my career, I've run 5-6 companies now. And Bespoke Partners was the first company where I had something similar to what you're talking about on day one that I used as a pre-read for my meeting with other executives. And oh my gosh, what a head start in terms of how we're going to work together, people's strengths, gaps that we needed to actually bring in other team members to fill in.
Yes.
And it is really cool. So I totally get what you're saying and the impact that it's having.
And the beauty is, again, it's not just the initial one. You see, hey, how is this team doing before you join? And then you get a follow-on in 6 months. And have you actually made an impact to those pieces of culture, strategy, execution that the team said were missing? Have you solved the gaps? And you can actually, you get a report card on how you're doing. And the team gets to have the conversation of like, yeah, we are getting better at these things. We are, we have higher trust. We do have a higher sense of belonging. We have more clarity on where we're going and what the strategy is. There aren't 16 action items.
Yeah.
And so you actually get to see that progress over time, which again, for recruiting firms is great to say, hey, like that executive we placed, look where they were, look where they are now. And look how quickly we were able to help them get up to speed with this additional product that support.
What do you think the next frontier around executive performance hiring and leadership development is?
Yeah. I think that quantification of strengths and of gaps and simplification. There is so much context. There are so many surveys and tools and things out there. And I think the next page is, what is the synthesis? How do we bring that all together so that you're not trying to reference a bunch of different information so much as having a cohesive, coherent view in kind of one place and one platform. So then you can actually take action on that behavior as opposed to just theoretically looking at these different things, being like, oh, okay, sounds interesting, but not actually putting it into use.
I think that synthesis is so important because the way I look at this, HR forever has been viewed as non-strategic. It's administrative work. And it's just, hey, keep us out of risk, keep the train on the track. And I think the next frontier for me is really strategic talent management, integrated, attract, develop, belong, retain. And I think that system that you're talking about is so important because once I have the system, I can up-level the people to do the work to create those high-performing teams. And so I think it's such a brilliant
and I think you said it that you kind of think we're at the beginning. In PE, we're sort of at the beginning of a wonderful transformation. And I agree. I still sit in meetings where there are the conversation about not performing. Does that mean the CEO isn't the right CEO? Like, can we just stop having that conversation? And can we give the CEO some tools and coaching to help the CEO tap into the whole executive team and build a greater team?
Right.
So I think we're at the beginning, and I applaud the notion. And it's not just the executive. I mean, we were here talking about that because that's where we're both kind of playing, but it goes throughout the organization. Every individual that is part of a great team will be better, a better individual performer. And so changing the conversation so that it's more about that, I think is going to help everybody, individuals and the companies.
Which ties back to explicit expectations. Are you incredibly clear in this noisy world with so much going on? Can you be incredibly explicit about what you expect and create clear agreements on what's going to happen so that you can actually hold people accountable, give feedback, and drive that performance, as opposed to just being like, oh, you're hired into the role, you should know what you're doing, and then just seeing them fail because you didn't make it clear what you expected.
Absolutely. Well, Debbie, Stephanie, thank you so much for carving out some time today. This was a fun conversation on some very important things, and I look forward to working with you guys to shape the future of PE and talent.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Eric. Really appreciate it.
Have an amazing day.
All right.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.